Welcome to Eye of the Storm. Never forget that we are the storm because we're standing together organizing a revolutionary movement. I have two special guests with me today, Lorina Mirafuentes and Thomas Biebers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, I'm so glad you could be here. And I always like to bring our Heavenly Father into the mix. So I was wondering, Lorina, would you do that for us?
Sure. Thank you, Lord, so much for bringing us together today. And please make it so that this message and what everyone's about to hear will be a powerful message, and so that it can help many others someday. Thank you so much for bringing us together, and may it bless this podcast and Audra and Tom and all of us in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much. I always find that is paramount just because of what we're dealing with. It's pretty crazy. So it's important to make sure that he's always with us, even though I know he is as well. But so Lorina Mirafuentes, former last name Troy, author, national advocate, and mother of three, is a powerful voice for hope, healing, and truth. Her book, Miracles of Faith, has reached readers around the world, inspiring countless lives. Now Lorina steps forward as executive producer of The Hidden Truth, a soon-to-air documentary based on her astonishing true story. It reveals a medical system where misdiagnosis is not rare, but alarmingly common. More than a medical mystery, The Hidden Truth is a testament to a mother's unwavering love and unbreakable spirit. It will move you, challenge what you thought you knew, and ignite a renewed sense of strength within. A story of courage, a message of hope, an unforgettable journey of faith and resilience. And Thomas Biebers is the director and owner of B&B Productions, a film production company. He is also the director of Lorina's upcoming new documentary called The Hidden Truth, which will be aired soon. And I believe that will be the first quarter of next year, which will be really exciting. And so before we get into that, I wanted to show your trailer so that we could, let's see what's happening. There we go. So that we could give people a taste, and then we'll go and get into it. So here we go.
Thank you. My name is Lorina. I'm from Poway, California. It's a nice city right near San Diego, California. My dad is one of 11 children, and my mom is one of 8 children. And I have a huge family with lots of aunts, uncles, and cousins. And I grew up with 3 crazy older brothers. There's never a dull moment with growing up with my brothers. There's never any history of drug, alcohol, or abuse in any way.
The Constitution of the United States, ratified on June 21, 1789, is the supreme law of the United States. The first 10 amendments, also known as the Bill of Rights, were written and proposed to the states on September 25, 1789, by the First Congress of the United States, and ratified by the necessary number of states on December 15, 1791. Unlike any document before it, the Bill of Rights laid out the rules, not for the people, but rather what the government can and cannot do. The 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments are specifically designed to protect the citizens from a dictatorial government. Their purpose is meant to ensure that people are treated fairly if suspected or arrested for crimes. The 4th Amendment specifically protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures without a warrant. On New Year's Eve 2014, Lorena, a young mother living in Austin, Texas, gave birth to her second child, JJ. Not long after his birth, Lorena became concerned about an ongoing medical issue. Concerned, Lorena sought out medical attention for JJ, but little did she know that the Constitution would not apply to her.
Lorena, you here?
Yes.
Along with the kids?
I don't know for sure. So Jennifer, did you talk to DHS from here that came and saw the kids where they were? You didn't come and see them, did you?
You're not going to have this.
Are you Bridget?
Right now.
Are you Bridget? You guys are corrupt from the beginning. You understand that? It's all about the money, right? $6,000 per kid?
That's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing the documentary and when it is released. I think it's so important. These stories, there's so many of them and so many families that are suffering. So I'm just thank you for taking the time to really put this forward, because you're also educating people. With the Constitution, they intentionally don't want us to know our rights and things like that, so that we can be ignorant and they can do these things. Right. So would you like to maybe kind of get into a little bit more of your story and what, took place that led you to want to expose this further as well?
Thank you. Yes, in 2015, my second son was born, and he was getting sick, and we couldn't figure out why. He was vomiting, and we kept taking him to his pediatrician and urgent care and even the children's hospital, but they kept misdiagnosing him with a stomach bug. And around his 4-month checkup, his pediatrician said, hey, take him to the children's hospital. He should be fine. But she noticed that his head was getting larger than normal since birth. So as a precaution, she just said, take him there to have an MRI taken of his head, because it seems like it has been getting bigger since birth. So my children's father took him to the children's hospital, and I stayed with my other son because I was feeling sick at the time. And he called me and he said they found fluid in his head and a little bit of blood, and they're trying to say that it's shaken baby syndrome and that he was abused. And we were both completely shocked, because we both knew no one ever hurt our son, no one ever would. And I went to the children's hospital and I spoke with a pediatric neurosurgeon, and I told him, my son has never been hurt in any way. Can this be something else, such as a medical condition? And he said, yes, but since he's a baby and can't talk, we're just going to go with abuse, and walked away. CPS was called to the hospital. They interrogated us. I had an attorney there, and they wrongfully accused their father, and they made him leave the children's hospital. Meanwhile, my son, he was just a baby at the time, and he had to have neurological surgery to drain the fluid from his head. And so they discharged us. They coerced me to sign a safety plan, and they threatened that if I didn't sign the safety plan, that they would take my children away from me. So I had to be supervised with my sons at all times with a family member, and they made their children's father leave the home, and they wrongfully accused him. And a few weeks later, I had to take him to a follow-up checkup, and they said the fluid reaccumulated and it's a chronic condition. So when I asked them, why is this a chronic condition? They said, we don't know. And they just stayed really quiet. A few months later, my approved supervisor was our cousin. She said, hey, I really miss my children in Oklahoma. I want to go see them, because she was in Texas with me for about a month and a half, and the safety plan had already expired. And I asked my attorney, what do I do? Do I stay alone with the kids, or do I go with her? He said, I'll notify CPS, the safety plan is expired, but I'll notify them that you're going to go to Oklahoma to visit family. So I got a call from CPS a few weeks later, and they said, where are you? And I told them, we are in Oklahoma, just visiting family, only a 6-hour drive away. If you need us to come back, just let me know. But I thought the case was done. I thought everything was over. They actually went to the judge in Texas, and they lied and falsified court documents and said my children were in immediate danger when they were not. They called CPS Oklahoma, and they told them, hey, I want you to take the children from her right now. They're in immediate danger. So good thing CPS Oklahoma stepped in. They did their own 3-hour investigation, and they said no. They told CPS Texas, no, we will not take her children from her. We deem them safe. And we will not take the children. And they asked CPS Texas and the Children's Hospital for my son's medical records. And CPS Oklahoma said they refused. CPS Texas and the Children's Hospital in Texas refused to give the medical records to her. And she said that's very concerning, because that usually has never happened. They actually showed up with the sheriffs with guns and badges. CPS Oklahoma did. They illegally crossed state. So CPS Texas illegally crossed state lines into Oklahoma, and illegally took my children from me with the sheriffs. And the sheriffs had their guns and badges.
The Oklahoma sheriffs?
Yes.
Right.
And that was the worst day of my life, when my kids were taken from me. My 4-year-old was taken, and my baby, and it was so heartbreaking and excruciatingly painful. And I had to fight for them for 5 months in court to get them back. and my 4-year-old lost 20 pounds within only 6 weeks from being taken. They said that he showed signs of sadness and depression, and my baby lost a significant amount of weight, and they did not take him to have his images taken and to see the neurologist like they're supposed to, because they kept moving him around in the foster care system. We asked if our children could be placed with family. They said no foster care and gave no reason. And a few months later, they actually wrongfully charged their father with 2 serious felonies of injury to a child. He had a top secret government and military security clearance, lost his job, and it destroyed our lives. Lost our kids, his job. We had to sell our house to pay for 3 attorneys to defend us in court. And after 5 months of fighting to get my children back, they were finally given back to me. And it took 2.5 years for their father to fight for his innocence in the criminal court system. We had a meeting with a criminal defense attorney, and he's like, hey, let me look at the medical records. You'd be shocked at what you could find in there. So he looked at the medical records himself. He hired a medical expert, and he said, I need to have a meeting with you in my office. And he's like, I know for a fact, he told my children's father, I know for a fact that you are innocent, and I found that your child had a birth injury. So we were in complete shock, for 2.5 years not having any answers. I ended up finding out that my son had a birth injury, and he has a condition called benign external hydrocephalus. And it's been about 10 years, so I've become a national advocate for families. I've met with over 12 lawmakers all over the U.S., and I helped to have a law passed in Texas that would allow a second opinion before wrongful and traumatic removal of the children. And our story's been all over the national and local news and People magazine, and it's important to raise that awareness because this is happening to so many families across our nation. There are about 600,000 children in foster care right now, and the Children's Bureau did a report and found that around 91% of child abuse cases are found to be false and unsubstantiated.
Right.
And that's really concerning, and we fight for change because there are many children in foster care that should not be there, and there are many children and caregivers that are sitting in prison, in jail right now, and they're in fact innocent.
That's right. I mean, 100% right. And that's what's so, sad about when they try and bury stories and this kind of information from coming out. And, these agencies, instead of, mitigating the problems, they transform them and rename them and act like, they're not doing the same things that they're doing. But I mean, ASFA is a really big part of that as well. And they should be, cutting that funding, because all the Title IV funding that comes in is just like, anything that they can do. And it goes into the hospitals with the Medicaid and Medicare, right? So it's like, they just it's a business to them. And it's so sad because children are suffering and parents are suffering. I mean, many will lose their lives because of it. So I'm so thankful that you've been doing this and that you're here. And Thomas, is this something that, you've heard of before? Were you kind of shocked when you heard about this? Like, what kind of documentaries do you make?
Well, I'd never heard about this before. We always hear about children in child abuse cases and sexual abuse cases, and you just assume right away that the parents are guilty before proven
Right.
innocent. And so it was kind of a shock in that regard. And I've been doing documentaries for a long time. I do primarily a series called Generations, a documentary series about the Holocaust. And my father was a survivor. And some of the things that I have recorded or got interviews from other survivors and their offspring is similar to what Lorina has gone through, not to the that far extreme,
Right.
but there's elements of it that are pretty similar, and her reaction is similar to some of the women who had their children taken away by the Nazis as well.
And how did you guys meet? Did you go to him, Lorina, or?
Yes, Tom and I used to work together many years ago, and we've kept in touch through Facebook, him and I and his wife. And I've been seeing, their documentaries, and I just had this heaviness on my heart. And I contacted him and I was like, hey, I really feel like we need to make a documentary about our story, something that's informative and powerful, and to help people feel like they're less alone, and to help people raise awareness and to help people heal. Because that's what so many people have contacted me over the years, and we're really struggling the emotional trauma, PTSD that so many families feel. We just don't know how to heal from it. So I also speak about that in our documentaries. I want people to know that it's possible to heal from this, and I did, and I know how. And it would just be amazing to have this awareness out there.
Yes. I mean, because, like Tom said, when everybody's idea of stuff has always been that, like, what did they do? Right. That's kind of the first question. So they don't go to like, maybe there could be something that didn't happen and that they're claiming has. And it's so egregious that it will, it's hard to wrap your head around. I think that people have a hard time doing that because it is unbelievable that this would happen with children and that they would, be, making money off of this, and that, even medical misdiagnosis. I mean, that can happen all the time, but in these types of cases, it actually keeps children from being able to get the care that they need. So do you feel like, go ahead, Tom?
Well, the one thing that kind of struck me is the children that are really abused,
Right.
and really abused and really sexually assaulted. It seems like their stories are ignored.
Exactly.
Where I live out here in near San Diego County in Riverside, there was a case not too long ago where a child was abused, was beaten, and CPS went there constantly, and nothing was ever done.
Arabella.
And a couple years later, they find the child dead underneath the sink. So how come when it's a real case of child abuse, it's neglected, and yet they go after somebody like Lorina? I couldn't fathom that.
Right.
And
that's why it's important to show. Go ahead.
And that's our concern, is like, why are children, like my children, being taken and all these resources and everything being used when there's clear evidence that they are not? Why not help the children that are in fact being abused?
Right.
And this is happening so often. Like, I never thought this would have ever happened to me, and all the other thousands of families keep saying the same thing. But this is happening so often that the people that we are in contact with, our friends, our families, it's happening so often that my cousin, she's an attorney in California, and she called me and said, hey, my friend is going through a similar situation in Florida. And then my pet sitter, she's like, hey, similar thing happened to my friend. And then Tom, it hit us. Our sound engineer is going through a similar situation in California. So it's shocking how often this is happening to so many people that we know.
Right. But that's why it's important. Like, if you talk about it, then other people want to come forward and share their story. I think they bank off of it staying in a silo because they traumatize the parents and even the children so much that you think if you just do whatever they say, that you'll get your child back. But it's like, it really doesn't matter, because they continue to move the goalposts back further and further. So even if you do accomplish, or like, there has been proof, like I remember even in San Diego, it was a long time ago, but there was a rapist going around and raping children, going in the windows of their rooms. And it happened with this father and daughter. Was like, they tried to say it was the dad doing it. And she said, no, I know who it was. Like, it was someone that came in the window, and there was a rapist going around doing it. But for years, they kept saying that he was doing it, trying to get her to say it. And she refused. They even had DNA, and they didn't go and do it. So it's like, even those medical records of your son, that would have been proof enough to show that his father wasn't doing anything. But instead of like using those things, they hide it, and they all work together to do it, which makes it so nefarious, because it's like, there's so many people that are doing it. Across the board, right? Whether it's medical professionals, the social workers, the, doctors that like will give you a therapy. Like, a lot of times they want people to do like a psychological exam. Did they ever ask you to do that?
Yes, I was forced to do a psychological exam, and I was forced to see a therapist and take parenting classes, because, the longer the case goes, the longer they keep. I also found that only about 35% of parents get their children back. So even when their children are wrongfully removed, only about 35% of them get them back, and they could be, their parental rights can be terminated, and they could be adopted out to non-family members. So this is so heartbreaking. Parents are committing suicide because the pain of losing your children is so deep. Like, and this can easily happen to anyone at any time. That's what's so shocking too, is like, it doesn't matter which race you are, how much money you have, like people in the military and the government, it's happening to them too. That's why is so important. And with my documentary, it can relate to so many people. And people contact me all the time. They're like, hey, my friends are going through this, my family's going through this. And also, people don't realize, everyone has trauma, everyone has emotional trauma. And when this type of situation happens, it heightens that trauma.
Mhm.
So through therapy and healing, there's like this neural network of trauma that can happen in childhood, and it's connected. So this, can also connect with other types of trauma, and healing is possible. And that's why I really wanted to make this documentary too. It can reach and help so many people.
Yeah, because healing is so important. Like, and you're on the side of it where you can really guide people to that, because most of the people are in it that are probably reaching out to you, right? And just starting to experience it. But I think that's why it's good. The more exposure that comes, the people that are just getting these experiences will be able to treat them different and not just kind of like cower away, because nobody who wants to talk about that, and that's what they, also bank off of, is that nobody's going to want to say, I have a CPS case and they're looking in at me. So they're going to think that you're going to keep it quiet because you don't want to talk about it. And then all this stuff can happen. And I think that exposure is really important right from the get-go, because they also don't like that when you're in their face about, like showing what they're doing, because they all want to do it under the cloak of darkness and be like, oh no. And that's why they do the whole confidentiality thing, right? This is detrimental to children. If you talk about that they have a dependency case or whatever, they repeat the same language. And it's so dangerous, because I'm like, where do you guys read that? I mean, is there a book that you get that you read that when a kid grows up, they're going to be embarrassed if you're trying to show that what they're doing is egregious, that there's either abuse or there isn't abuse, and they're saying that it's the opposite? I don't think that's detrimental to children. That's detrimental to the agency and this whole network of people that are doing this.
And what's also, yeah, and
Go ahead,
what's also
please.
shocking? Sorry, before I forget, what's
No.
also shocking is when we're in court and they dismiss that family court case, CPS is there, the judge is there, there's no apology. In the criminal court system, when they dismiss those horrific charges on my children's father, no apology. They just sweep it under the rug and act like
Right.
it never happened.
Right. And no one's held accountable. That's the problem, right? They come in and they try and hold parents accountable, but they're not really, nothing happens to these people. They just continue to do it. And it's like, oh, my bad. We're just going to put this here and we'll just forget about it. And you need to as well. Did they try and tell you to keep everything confidential as well?
No, shockingly, they didn't. Usually they could put gag orders and make you speak about it. And we didn't speak about it until our cases were dismissed per our attorney's advice. And what was shocking to me is it took 2.5 years for me to realize the truth of what really happened. And that was what was so hard too. I'm like, what is really wrong with my son? How could he get the best medical care if I don't know what really happened? Right. So 2.5 years later, I found that the birth hospital, so where my son was born, they knew he had birth injury, never told us anything. And it's very vague in the medical records and very small print, and they leave a lot of the information out because that's the evidence that people could use against them. And then I found out that the children's hospital knew that my son had hydrocephalus because it's in the medical records. From day one, it said MRI report, protocol for hydrocephalus. The children's hospital knew my son was never abused and he had hydrocephalus, never told us, and instead they made a false report of abuse.
So sad. And
it's happening so often.
Yes. And they'll also, I have experienced it where they've actually hidden abuse, where they won't do like a sexual assault exam and, refuse to do these things. And then they'll claim that, someone else is making it up. And it's like, what? But you won't even do an exam. So they'll say, we can't confirm nor deny. And that's the sad thing, is these hospitals also, profit off of that, and working with the agency like that. And that's what's so disgusting. Tom, do you think that, have you had other people reach out to you and want to have you share their story as well?
Well, not to me personally, but like Lorena said, our sound engineer just recently had something come up that if it wasn't for actually doing our film, he would have no idea what avenue to take.
Right.
So that, like I said, it's become personal on his end as well as ours. So I haven't had anybody reach out to me personally, but they're free to. But I would refer them to Lorena because she knows more in depth in it. I just handle the visual and the technical side of the film. Lorena
Right.
is the spokeswoman.
Yeah, but remember, Tom, we had that meeting and there were like several other families that went through a similar situation, and
Well, yeah, we did something like that. We had like a similar podcast interview. Other families wanted to come and discuss their stories with us. So
yeah, it'd be great to do a docu-series because there's so many, families that have amazing stories that we would like to share and bring awareness to.
so we're looking for that as well. If anybody wants to get a hold of us, they can, and I'll leave you our contact information at the end.
Yeah, that's great because I was going to ask for that because I think that there's so many other, so many stories that could be told. And again, the more that it happens, the more people can see, and then they can understand that they shouldn't support these types of things that happen. I mean, you would want to support it because I don't know. I found that there's more abuse that's not being taken care of and that they're manufacturing it. And so, I mean, do you even think that the system could be that it's ever been utilized in the right way to like protect children and make sure that or do you find, do you think that it's just kind of this way and that you can't fix it?
I think it's been this way for many years.
Well, our sounding, not to get too personal with his story, but when CPS came to his door, they came to with law enforcement. Law enforcement believed his story. The police did. CPS said, told the detective, you don't know what you're looking for, we'll handle it. So CPS overrode the police. So there's not much they can do at that point. So it just became a tangled mess.
Right. Well, and then I think about how they crossed state lines with you. I've heard them crossing county lines, and they would have to actually, talk to the sheriff to make sure that they have them as backup. So it's a little bit like interesting that, CPS in Oklahoma wouldn't do anything, but that Texas CPS was able to convince the sheriff to go in.
Yeah. And I tried to get records from the sheriff's office and they can't be found.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yet they came and took your kids.
Yep.
So what about in Texas? Do they have a record of that? That they came and took them?
Yeah, they have court documents, and that's what's very concerning is these CPS officers, they could just lie and falsify court documents and nothing happened, and they legally took my
and all their attorneys.
Yep, and that violated my children's 1st, 4th, and 14th Amendments. Their civil rights were violated.
100%. Well,
and that's another thing that blows my mind. I'm a pretty strong constitutionalist, and it seems every criminal defendant has the right to the presumption of innocence. A murderer has more legal rights than Lorena.
Yes.
There's all the courts are designed to defend
itself.
Like I said, a murderer or a armed a sexual assault, they have more rights than Lorena did.
Yeah, it's you're guilty until you prove your own innocence. And my attorney, he's like, it's really sad that people that are in jail and prison have a lot more rights than children and families do, because they're in there and they're fighting for their rights and they're having all these laws passed to protect them, but children and families do not have the same laws to protect them. It's just really sad, and it should be changed.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to go somewhere, but like a lot of interesting things is that they will look at like illegal immigrant families as not wanting them to be ripped apart, but they don't look at the American families that happens to all the time. And I'm like, how can you why don't you just care about all families and make sure that this doesn't happen? But if the idea is that this isn't happening, then why would they acknowledge it in that way? So it is something that they pretend that they are doing it in a virtuous way. We're here to protect children. And they use those words that will pull on your heartstrings because you're like, oh my gosh, who doesn't want to protect children? right? And that's obviously what they're doing, because how could they not? I mean, why would they abuse children like that? It just, you can't wrap your head around it until, like, I just started hearing so many stories, like you were saying, where I'm like, how does this, like, I'm talking across the nation and they're the same. And so it's not like, you just have this group of people where they're in a silo and they're just like, it's all their experience. It's like, no, this is all over the place.
Yeah, it's pretty much in every county in every state, all of the states. It's happening.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for the news and the media, because ABC National News shared our story last year. I'm so thankful for the news and the media because it helps add steam and traction to much needed change.
Yes.
If people don't know this is a problem, how are they going to try to fix it? So that awareness is huge. And then a lawmaker in Texas told me, by hearing and seeing your story in the news and the media and other families, it shined a light on how broken our system is, and we are trying to fight to change it. So,
I love that.
hope that some senators and state representatives are working with us to fight for change. And I hope that bill can be a federal law someday, because we need federal laws all throughout the United States that will protect families and children.
100%. I was going to say, go into that bill and like tell us a little bit more about it and kind of what it took for you to, get that in there.
I requested a meeting with a state representative and chair of the Human Services Committee, and he had a meeting in his office at the Capitol building in Austin, Texas. And then several months later, he invited me to, his assistant personally invited me to share my testimony at a legislative hearing. And I had two news stations there, Fox 7 Austin and KXAN News. And it was amazing that they were able to share our story. And other families and organizations were also there fighting for this bill to be passed. And it took 2.5 years to get it passed. And it's important, we learned that's important for the Senate to also know, because if the Senate and the state and the senators don't know that the bill is out there, it could be denied or, just pushed under the pile of other bills that they're trying to get through. And it's not easy. Like I requested a Zoom meeting with senators and a state representative in Missouri, and I had other families on there, and I shared my story, and I was like, hey, this is happening in your state, in Missouri as well. Can we work together to have a law passed in Missouri? And his response is, do you know how long it takes to have a law passed? And I said, yes. I'm very aware it took 2.5 years in Texas, but we really need to have laws passed that will help protect the children and families.
Right. And so when, you were first talking to these reps, like, did you find that a lot of them were kind of shocked? I mean, did some of them already know that this was taking place, and were some of them kind of new into coming into that reality?
Some were really genuinely surprised and shocked, because honestly, I didn't know either. We're told, CPS is doing everything to protect the children. So we tend to, believe what we hear. But
Right.
when we see proof and evidence and all these families coming forward, it's really a huge eye opener. And that's why these lawmakers were like, we're really genuinely working to make this system better. And there's a recording where the senator said, families have contacted me for the past 10 years and the system is very broken and we need to fix it. And he was talking to the director of CPS and asking her very firm questions, like there needs to be more caution when you take children, because these are scars. These are lifelong scars and trauma that affect children and families for the rest of their lives. And you need to be more careful with that. And that's what we need. We need lawmakers to fight for us and to ask, the CPS, the directors of CPS all over the United States, why is this happening? Where's the funding going? And then the senator in Texas, she pulled the funding between CPS and the Children's Hospital. And, it's so important to raise this awareness and to fight for change together. And the awareness is huge, because if families and children and people know that this is happening, they are going to fight for change.
Yes. That's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, and we want other families to not feel so scared and be courageous and share their stories. But because it's very embarrassing and like you feel super uncomfortable when you've gone through this situation. You don't want to talk about it. When I first went through it, I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to just go run and hide and live far away from everyone and not talk about it. But then, I felt this heaviness on my heart. If I don't talk about this, it won't help anybody, and so many people are suffering and need help.
Absolutely. And it emboldens others to just say, okay, I can speak up about it too. I don't need to be afraid. I'm not alone. You know, this is happening. And I'm not crazy. I think a lot of people, you know, because it would make you feel crazy to be like, but I'm doing everything. You know what I mean? It's like, but you have to understand that that's not what the system is here for. It doesn't matter if you do everything right. You know, it's not. So it's like helping them to understand that it's not you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I felt so alone when I went through this situation. And then a few years later, I was connected with all these organizations and people. I'm like, wow, so many people are going through this too. And people don't realize that.
Do you have, is there a lot of people in Texas that you like can meet with and talk with, or do you find, I mean, and yeah, I mean.
Yes, there's organizations like the Family Forward Project, Parents Behind the Pinwheels, Fractured Families, Family Justice Resource Center. There's amazing organizations out there that they don't have the funding, and honestly, so many people just volunteer to help others, which is amazing to see that.
Yeah, that's great. And so how, you know, it's been 10 years. So, I mean, how are your children doing now? I mean, are they just, you know, do you see that there's effects that have, you know, residual effects that still bother them? Or I mean, have they gone through a really nice healing process through this with you?
Yeah, we've been able to heal from it, but it still affects us. You know, it's a scar that will never completely go away. I've been told, you know, it's like when you hurt your leg really bad and you have this limp, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And the best thing is to try to heal from it. It definitely affected my children and I for years, and I'm happy to see that they're doing much better, and so am I. It's definitely been quite the journey to heal, and that was the thing that was so tough for me, and I felt this heaviness on my heart to try to help others, but I was also praying about that because I'm like, how do I heal from something so emotionally painful and fight for change at the same time? But honestly, my faith and prayer and trust in God really gave me the strength and that passion on my heart to help others and to just keep pushing forward to raise that awareness and to help others. What a mother in Texas, she contacted me and she was crying. And, you know, I get contacted often from families. So she was crying, completely heartbroken that her baby girl was taken from her in Texas as well. And I said, hey, you know, there's this amazing attorney, and I've been able to, I've seen him get children returned to their parents, you know, faster than some other children, because sometimes they take them for a year, a few years, or they get them back. So she hired him, and then a few months later, she got her daughter back, and she was crying, so happy. And I feel so thankful and blessed to, you know, be that connection that can help connect families for the help that they need, whether it's organizations, attorneys, or healing.
Yes, I mean, I think attorneys is really important because the attorneys that they give are so horrific. I mean, it's just a joke to call them an attorney. So I wish more attorneys would, you know, come forward to try and help parents. So, you know, that's a really great resource that you can provide because, I mean, and part of it too, I think there's a lot of families that can't afford it. So they're kind of left with what the court appoints or trying to do it themselves. And they really don't like you doing it yourself.
Yes,
That's for sure.
yes, for sure. Like families, they have to hire. When I spoke to my cousin in LA, and she's an attorney, she's like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I know that you and their father would never hurt your kids ever. So you hire your own attorneys and you fight this. And I'm so glad she gave me that advice. But, you know, a lot of families don't have 80 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had to sell our house to pay for the mounting attorney fees for 3 attorneys, max out credit cards, take loans. And even now we're still making payments on all the attorney fees. But you have to fight like crazy for your innocence and for your children. It's so hard. This is complete mass destruction of people's lives. You lose your kids, you lose your house, you lose your job, you lose your savings. Everything is completely wiped out. And honestly, if it wasn't for my faith and trust in God and prayer, there's no way I would have been able to make it through it.
Yeah, it's paramount to always bring him into, especially because, I mean, do you find that this is spiritual as well? Like, I mean, I do, you know? So it's, I mean, without him, I don't know how we can, you know, fight this wickedness. It's spiritual wickedness because, you know, these people, I mean, it's like they enjoy taking the children. I mean, it's just bizarre to me to think like, and I don't know if how they can, you know, in their own mind be like, what I'm doing is good. And partially part of that could be that they will keep information compartmentalized potentially, right? So not everybody knows that like those records would say that he has this and that was a birth defect or whatever, not a birth defect, a birth issue. But if not everybody sees that, then they're going to be like, oh, for sure, then it has to be abuse, right? So it's kind of interesting in that way. Do you think that that would be true too?
Yes, and I think this was a huge eye opener for Tom and his entire staff too, because we have other people in our documentary that we interviewed. And Tom, was it like a shock to hear all of their interviews and what they were saying as well?
Well, like I said, the one similarity, especially when you look at the clip that the live action clip that you saw, documentary, the reaction to Lorena and the children is very similar to what happened 80 some years ago in the ghettos in Eastern Europe. So the emotional trauma of losing your child is still it's equal now as it was 80 some years ago. So there's where the similarities are, and that's to me what kind of drove me to this film. I said, well, there's a lot here that I'm familiar with, just in a different venue.
Did you kind of question it a little bit? Were you like, I don't, like, is this really going to be, or did you know, like getting into it, were you like, yes, 100% I want to do this? Or did you have reservations just because of the ideas of, what we think CPS is?
No, I mean, because Lorena came to us one time, we did a little commercial for our book that she put out. So I was already kind of familiar with it, not to the degree what you presented. And then once I saw the clip that the live action clip, that sealed the deal.
Right. And do you feel like when you're talking to people about this, do they have reservations? Because I know just people's ideas. Are they like excited? Are they shocked?
They're more shocked and about this and actually just about 2 days ago, where I was talking about to another client and they're asking me what we're doing outside of generation, and I explained this, and there was that momentary that wow, we had no clue. So I says, well, stand by, the film's coming out next quarter, so there's even my wife is the director of photography on this film, and she couldn't even, as a filmmaker, you try to stay distant. You try to look at the technical side of things,
right?
And when you're filming, you have blinders as to what she's going through. You just want to get the shot correct and the emotion that you want to project. Once all that is done, then I come back and look at the footage. To me, the difficult part was reviewing the footage after I shot it.
Right.
That's why you have to take, when you edit these type of films, you got to do 3 days of editing, and you need another 2 days just to calm down. Because you wait a minute, and I forgot this happened, and my wife, every time, she can't watch the work because it's emotional on her end. So it's powerful. The testimony by the others, and what her we interviewed an attorney, and there's a doctor involved. So there's a lot of things that validate what Lorena's saying. Because one thing you want to make sure you do is for Lorena's case as a filmmaker, one thing you don't want to have a documentary is have someone poke a hole in it.
Right.
There's going to be doubters out there. Trust me, I do Holocaust stuff, but there's plenty of doubters when I put those out. So you got to make sure all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and you have to have others to validate what Lorena has gone through, and that to me was shocking. So I'm letting Lorena do the talking on her experience, but from that aspect, I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, and we've been working on our documentary for 1.5 years, so we're excited that's finally going to be finished soon.
Where is it going to go? Go ahead, or keep finishing.
Tom, do you want to answer that?
We're going to try to get it up on Amazon Prime, to launch it on Amazon Prime, and then prior to Amazon Prime will send us this. I'd like to do the festival market, send on the film festival circuit, and build the momentum on that end as well. But
Yeah.
Amazon Prime is where we'll probably launch.
And he
Because
had
you could go ahead.
and he had some meetings with some executives that might also help.
Yeah, out of curiosity, some executives that liked what I do for Generation, I was able to pitch hers, and so they want to see it once it's completed as well. So there's avenues there, and they're always open for private screenings. You know.
Yeah, that would be something. I mean, are you, because you could, go around and have an event, and, have people see it and then do questions and answers even. I think that would be cool to do in San Diego.
Yeah, and I think there's always that opportunity to do those things. So.
Yeah, that'll be, because I mean, just watching the that short clip, I mean, it really, pulls on your heartstring. It gets you, and I think I'm just too, I cry all the time. So it's like, but it's an emotional subject, and it's like, I don't know how people can't feel, about that. So I think it's so important to really get into the hearts of people so that they can see that we have to, the change will come when the people unite together and say, we're done believing that this is the way it's going. We don't want our money going to that. Like, that's what I think should upset people too, is like, you're funding for this to happen. So, it should be more upsetting than to just kind of go, well, whatever. It's like when people see how far and wide it is spread, they will just be like, it's shocking.
Yes, and when you speak about the emotion that you get watching just the trailer, I learned what makes a powerful story is empathy. When you can have that empathy in people and they can watch it, it makes a powerful story and people are able to connect with it better.
Yes, I love that. And I can't wait to see it. And I love hearing that that your boys are doing good, despite all of this. That's, and is your son's issue something that he can heal from, or is that a lifelong complication?
Yeah, it's a lifelong. He has a internal VP shunt, so the fluid in his head didn't drain correctly from when he was born, and
Right.
the shunt really helps the extra CSF fluid drain properly. And he is almost 11, and he still has it. And the doctors told me there's enough cord in there to where when he grows, he just grows within it.
Oh, that's good.
One doctor actually told me the hospital that actually misdiagnosed him with child abuse, they wanted to take it out. And I was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because you said it's chronic and he has a chronic condition. Why take it out? So I got a second opinion at a different hospital a few hours away. And he said, no, I would definitely leave that in. So it's also so important for us as parents, and even in our families, whenever they're in the medical system, it's so important to get 2, 3, 4 opinions. We have to be our own advocates and fight for our health and for our rights.
Yeah, not be intimidated by them. I think doctors like to try and intimidate, like they're so, I have my white jacket and you should listen to me. I know better. And so people will feel inferior. And it's like, don't allow them to make you feel like that, especially when you know what's going on with your child. Because even as adults, like I remember trying to tell a doctor what's going on, and they don't like you telling them what you're experiencing for whatever reason. And that's dangerous. So, that's such a good, encouraging word. I mean, what other things that could you leave for our audience that would be helpful, that you like them to know?
Well, something that I also learned was I spoke with this lady, she works in the medical system, and she's like, I was shocked that this is happening because it also happened to her and she's in the medical system. But she's in all fairness though, we don't really know. Like, doctors are being trained in school that if they see fluid in an MRI, it's automatically abuse. So if doctors were trained to also be like, hey, this can also be hydrocephalus and so many other conditions, and why not bring in a medical expert? Like, these child abuse pediatricians are in hospitals, and they, it's not possible for a child abuse pediatrician to be a specialist in all avenues of medical science. You need a neurologist, you need a cardiologist, you need all these specialists. And that's a huge problem, is these child abuse pediatricians. Our medical experts said that she was not properly trained or qualified to read my son's images correctly. If she was, she would have been able to correctly diagnose him herself, and she wasn't able to.
I mean, that's insane. And I don't know, how can she do that? Why would you? That's so dangerous. Is there anything else that you think that, is important just as far as like, about CPS that you think it's important for parents to know, or any kind of like words of wisdom, like, hey, if you encounter them?
Well, the thing that we learned is, we had to be very careful about what we said because that was twisted and used against us. And also, honestly, at first it was very painful to know that CPS would actually lie and falsify court documents and just take my children from me. But one of the healing journeys was I had to learn to forgive them and pray for them because, it's really tough to heal from something if you have so much anger and hurt and pain inside. And I forgive them and I pray for them and I hope that they will do the right thing someday. And that CPS all throughout the world and the United States will actually protect children like they're supposed to. So we have that hope that the system can be fixed someday. And to just tell parents, stay strong, never give up, and keep fighting for the truth. And to know that they're not alone because this situation, you feel so alone and isolated. And there's so many, there's a huge support system out there, and there are advocates and attorneys and organizations that are fighting for change. Even though it's not out there, we are fighting for change behind the scenes. So never lose hope and keep that faith and keep praying because prayer can change things.
And I'm going to get to you, Tom, real quick, but I wanted to ask you one more thing. Like, what about, potentially sharing the bill that you were helping get into place that could be, obviously federal, but like going to each state to have them also do that.
Yeah.
Maybe, that's something we could talk about offline or something.
Yes, that'd be amazing if it could be a federal bill someday. And it's hard to believe, like, you need a bill for this kind of thing, for a second opinion. But that's the thing is when I was in the children's hospital and I asked them for a second opinion, I said, can I please get a second opinion? They said, no, we don't feel that's necessary. And then your children are taken from you and you can't take them to other doctors. So, people should have that right to have a second opinion before wrongful and traumatic removal of their children. And it'd be so awesome if it could be a federal law someday and have more laws passed to protect children and families because there are not enough. There's so many children and families that are hurting and suffering and there isn't enough. And before my dad passed away, he told me, I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing because so many people need help.
Amen. And Tom, do you have some things that you think that now that you would like to share for people to know as well?
Just don't give up. Whenever the old adage, my father used to say, when the government says we're here to help you, you better run.
Yes.
We're here to guide you. We're here. We're your best source. That's not true. Sometimes you just gotta take the bull by the horn and take a stand and like Lorina did, just move forward. They don't. A lot of times these governments don't like when you fight back. They like people who are passive, and I think fighting back is something they're not used to, and that's the one thing I did learn about this film is how much pushback they gave once you start fighting. I don't think they really expected it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what pushback you get once it comes out for those that want to silence it, because it will be so great and so damaging to not only because it's exposing, right? So it's damaging to what they're doing, but it's fantastic because it actually is detrimental not to share this, and it will cause more detriment to children in the not knowing this. But there will be people, I'm sure, that are going to be like, we can't have that, and you'll go, and it'll be interesting to hear why, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think there'll be some of that?
Possibly, but we have prayer and faith that God protects us and we have angels protecting. Right. And
Well,
we had when we were filming with, some pretty powerful, good things that were happening.
Amen.
And also too, I always look at this, if the powers to be are watching this film, all power to them. Maybe they'll see, good. One, the more people look at it, the better for us.
That's right.
And maybe they can look at themselves in the mirror and have a wake up call on their end too. So hey, we welcome all views, both on the CPS side as well as those who are being traumatized.
Amen. And God is always in control. And I wasn't trying to make you feel like something, but I just know how they are with stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if there is pushback, to be like, no, you can't show it here or something, because
Right.
everybody should be wanting to do it, right?
Totally
And,
understand.
Well,
and
here's where we do
it's
come in. You
great.
know, I have, you know, we have lawyers on our side, and something called the First Amendment.
Right.
You know, and so I'll
Freedom of
use
the
that,
press,
freedom of the press, and the freedom of expression. I will use that to, you know, just
all of it. Yeah.
And we have my attorney was there the whole time, and she's like, I'm here if you guys have any questions or anything. We have amazing attorneys that are fighting for us.
Which is fantastic. See, so God will always make a way. They'll just, Satan always hates when, you know, the light's shining on what he's doing. So it'll be interesting, but that's why God is so important, because he'll open those doors that, you know, they're not going to be able to shut, even if they try, you know, because they hate being exposed, but it's fantastic. And that's why more and more of it needs to come out. And I'm so thankful that you guys came on today. And so how can people support you? Either, you know, for the documentary or just everything that you're doing.
Yeah, like you were saying, the light shines on the darkness, but the darkness cannot overcome it.
That's right. Praise the Lord.
I'm just super excited to share our documentary. We've worked so hard on this for a year and a half. It's called The Hidden Truth of Misdiagnosis. You know, there's so much that could come up. Before we started filming, I'm like, I know this isn't going to be easy. So I'm going to just mentally prepare myself in advance. And there have been so many challenges along the way. But I feel so blessed to have an amazing team. Tom, his wife, and his whole team. They've been so amazing, and we're so thankful and appreciate them so much.
I'm going to put the poster up real quick, and then oh, there we go. So this is what it will be. It's actually behind Lorina, but I just wanted to give you guys that real quick again. And so, but like, do you like a website, your social media? Is there ways people can reach out to you?
Yes, usually through my Facebook page. It's author Lorina Troy. That was my former last name, but then in parentheses, it's my current last name, Lorina Mirafuentes. And usually people reach me through my author page on Facebook. And there's so many organizations and people that are out there fighting for change and that can help, and to just help people feel less alone, because, you know, you feel so alone. Whenever you go through challenging times in life, you automatically feel alone, especially in this situation. But there's a huge support system and people out there to help. And we just have that passion. I have that passion on my heart to help others. And I just hope and pray for change, that things can get better someday.
And if you can't get a hold of her, you can reach us. We have a website, you know,
Yes.
bndproductionsllc.com. So, and
do you have any kind of like donations? Like, do you need donations to help with what you're doing? I mean, also feel free to, if that was something that you would like to share. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're covering all bases.
It'd be awesome if anyone wants to donate. I don't have that set up yet. We should probably do that, because once our documentary gets out there, that, you know, families need help. The funding, like all these organizations, I'm just like in awe to see the goodness and the kindness in everyone's hearts, because in these organizations, they don't have the funding. So a lot of us have had to volunteer our time, and to just see people pull together to be there to help others it's truly remarkable, and it's heartwarming to see that. And we just hope and pray for change. Things can get better, but if we work together and fight for change, things can get better. We just can't lose that hope. We have.
so I do it on our website. I'll set some. We do have funding, you know,
Right.
abilities on our website as well. So if you fund through us, then I'll make sure she gets it.
Awesome. Yeah, just any way we can support you guys in this, that would be, you know, fantastic. I'm just, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing The Hidden Truth. You know, when it comes out, I would like to, I mean, I want to stay in touch. So when it comes out, we should have you back on again to, you know, bring more light to it, so we can get, you know, more advertising, since it's going to be a couple of months or a month or so, you know, however long, whatever. But just, we'll stay in touch, and I'll bring you guys back so that we can do that, to make sure that it's right back in people's minds and that they go and watch it.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
Yes, I just thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to share this, even though I hate like that we have to share these things, but it's so important because people need to know. And so thank you guys for joining us. Join me next time where I bring you more truth, love, light, a little bit of darkness in between, and all of the good things. God bless you guys. Thank you, Lorina, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
take care. All right, bye-bye.